The day my selfish son and his wife won $53 million in the lottery, they told me to get out. We don't need your pension money anymore, they said. Just go away. They went pale when I laughed and replied, "Honey, did you even check whose name is on that ticket?" If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're from. Let me explain how we reached this incredibly satisfying moment. 3 weeks ago, on a gloomy December morning in Cedar Falls, Iowa, I was doing my usual Friday ritual. I was buying my weekly lottery ticket at Murphy's Corner Store, just as I had for the last 32 years. I always played the same numbers, a tradition I started back in 1992. The same little prayer sent upstairs to whoever might be listening. My name is Dorothy Williams, but folks call me Dot. I'm 67, a widow for 2 years, and I live in what my daughter-in-law Ashley calls their guest room, though most guests aren't asked to hand over their entire Social Security check for rent. Morning, Mrs. Williams, Jimmy Murphy called from behind the counter. At 25, he still remembered when I'd bring my son, Michael, in for penny candy. The usual, "You bet," I said, handing him my $5. Those numbers, 7, 14, 23, 31, 45, and Powerball 18, they told a story. 7 was the day I married Henry. 14 was the day Michael was born. 23 was our anniversary. 31 was our house number. 45 was the years we shared. 18 was Michael's age at graduation. So proud and full of promise back then. I never dreamed those numbers would become my ultimate revenge. "Wish me luck, Jimmy," I said, putting the ticket in my purse. "Always do, Mrs. Williams. You're due for some good fortune." If only he knew how right he was. Walking home in the cold, I passed the house Henry and I shared for 43 years. The new owners painted it yellow. Henry would have hated that. He always said our white house with black shutters looked respectable, like a place where good people raised children with strong values. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was now living with the child we raised in that respectable house, and he was treating me like a burden. Ashley's luxury car was in the driveway when I got to the house I was supposed to call home. Through the window, I saw her on the phone, gesturing wildly, probably planning her next vacation or complaining about having to share her space with her husband's old mother. I let myself in through the back door, hanging my coat on the hook by the laundry room, the same hook where Michael used to hang his Little League jersey, where Henry hung his work shirts, where families hang things because they belong. "Dot, is that you?" Ashley's voice had that sharp tone it got when she was annoyed, which was most of the time. "Just me," I called back. I wanted to say, "Sorry for existing in your perfect house," but I didn't. I'd learned that sometimes survival means staying quiet to keep your dignity, even when it gets harder every day. "Dot, everything changed when Henry died, though I didn't see it at first. Grief blinds you to the vultures circling overhead, especially when one is your own son." The funeral was on a Tuesday in December 2022. It felt surreal. 45 years of marriage, reduced to a short service, and a lunch with store-bought sandwiches. Michael gave a nice speech about his father being a good provider. Ashley wore black and dabbed her eyes at the right moments, though I'd never seen her cry real tears over anything that didn't involve her credit card. "Mom, you can't stay in that big house alone," Michael said as we drove home. "It's not practical." I was staring at the frozen fields, remembering when Henry and I drove these same roads when we were dating. He'd hold my hand and talk about the house we'd buy, the children we'd raise. Practical was never part of those dreams. "I've managed for 65 years, I replied. "I think I can handle a few more, but the upkeep, the lawn, the snow," Ashley chimed in from the front seat. "At your age, Dot, it's dangerous. What if you fall? What if no one finds you for days?" She almost sounded concerned. I almost believed it. "Besides," Michael added, "we have plenty of room. The guest room is barely used, and you could help with the grandkids." Help with the grandkids, that should have been my first clue. Their house was a large colonial in a new neighborhood, with a 3-car garage and a kitchen island bigger than my first apartment. They'd bought it 5 years earlier, stretching their budget to what Ashley called the absolute limit and what I thought was beyond their means. The guest room was nice, pale yellow walls, white furniture, a view of their perfect backyard. "It'll be like a comfortable hotel," Ashley said, fluffing the pillows. "Your own space, but with family nearby." The first month was pleasant. I cooked dinners, cleaned without being asked, and stayed in my room when they wanted privacy. They seemed grateful, though they never offered to pay for groceries or utilities. Even though my Social Security check was going to what Ashley called household expenses. By the second month, the requests started. Could you watch Emma and Jake this weekend? We need couple time. Could you get the dry cleaning? You're going out anyway. Could you wait for the cable guy? We're at work. Slowly, efficiently, I was becoming unpaid help, but I told myself it was temporary, just until I figured out my next move. Just until the grief faded. I should have listened to Henry's voice in my head. Dorothy. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. By summer, the mask slipped. Ashley's requests became demands, and Michael was always absent when trouble started. We need to talk about the financial arrangement, Ashley said one morning over coffee. She had papers spread on the table like a business meeting. Your share of utilities, food, maintenance, it's only fair you contribute proportionally. Proportionally should have been my second clue. She slid a paper across the table. An itemized list: $800 for rent, $200 for utilities, $300 for food. $1,3 total. Exactly $50 less than my monthly Social Security check. This seems high, I said carefully. I'm only one person, and I'm out at the senior center for hours. But you use the kitchen, bathroom, laundry, Ashley countered. And when the kids visit, you're here all weekend, which increases our costs. Emma and Jake, Michael's children from his first marriage, visited every other weekend. I loved having them. They were 8 and 10, full of energy and joy, reminding me why being a grandmother was supposed to be wonderful. Ashley saw it differently. It's exhausting having kids here every other weekend, she told her sister on the phone one day, not knowing I could hear. And with here, it's like running a boarding house. I signed the agreement. What choice did I have? Finding an apartment at my age with only $50 to spare was impossible. Michael seemed genuinely worried about me, even if his wife saw me as a source of income. This is just temporary, Mom, he assured me, until we figure out a long-term plan. The long-term plan meant I became more invisible and more useful. By fall, I did all the shopping, cooking, and cleaning. When the grandkids visited, I was their main caretaker while Michael and Ashley went out. When they had friends over, I served drinks and then disappeared upstairs so the adults could talk. The breaking point came in November, during one of Ashley's dinners. I'd spent all afternoon preparing food and cleaning. As I collected empty glasses, I overheard Ashley talking to her friend Jennifer. It's worked out perfectly, Ashley said. Handles all the domestic stuff, watches the kids, and her Social Security covers her costs. It's like having live-in help, except she pays us for the privilege. Jennifer laughed. That's brilliant. You should write a book, How to Monetize Your Mother-in-Law. Standing there with a tray of dirty glasses, listening to my life discussed as a clever business plan, something inside me snapped. This wasn't family helping family. This was exploitation. But I didn't say anything. I just loaded the dishwasher and went to my room. After all, I still had my weekly lottery ticket. Sometimes, if you wait long enough, the universe balances the scales. December brought an early blizzard and Ashley's announcement. They were converting the basement into a mother-in-law suite for me. She presented it like a wonderful upgrade, with a small kitchen and a separate entrance. You'll have more privacy, she explained, showing me drawings. Almost like your own apartment. The basement. They wanted to put me in the basement. Michael hovered, looking uncomfortable. The contractor says it'll be done by spring. You'll have the kitchenette, so you won't need to use the main kitchen as much. Translation. They wanted to isolate me completely. What if I don't want to move to the basement? I asked. Ashley's smile tightened. Well, we've been thinking. This arrangement has worked, but we need our space as a couple. The basement gives you independence while keeping us close, and if I want to live somewhere else. The silence was heavy. Finally, Michael cleared his throat. Mom, we love having you. But if you wanted other options, we'd understand. Other options. At my age, with $50 a month, my options were a long waiting list for senior housing or a scary apartment in a bad part of town. They had me trapped, and they knew it. That Friday, I walked to Murphy's with more determination than ever. The snow was falling, making the sidewalk slippery, but I didn't care. My whole life had become treacherous. Rough weather for walking, Mrs. Williams, Jimmy said as I stomped my boots. I've walked through worse, I replied, pulling out my $5. Same numbers as always. As he printed the ticket, I thought about those numbers differently. 7 for the day one married Henry, when I believed in happy endings. 14 for the day Michael was born, when I thought I was raising a good man. Maybe it was time for those numbers to mean something new. I tucked the ticket into my wallet behind Henry's old driver's license. I could never throw it away. Wish me luck, Jimmy, I said. Always do, Mrs. Williams. This could be your week. Walking home, I passed kids sledding, their laughter pure and joyful without any hidden agendas. I remembered Michael at that age, building snow forts until he was frozen, refusing to come inside. Where had that boy gone? Back home, Ashley was on the phone with the contractor. Yes, we need the cheapest options for everything, she said. It doesn't need to be fancy. It's just for one elderly person. Just for one elderly person. That's all I was in my son's house. Not Dorothy Williams, who lived a full life, but just one elderly person to be managed cheaply. I went upstairs to my room while I still had one and watched the snow fall. In my purse, my lottery ticket waited patiently with those familiar numbers that had never let me down, even when people had. Sometimes the universe takes its time preparing justice. But when it arrives completely. The winning numbers were announced Friday night at 10:59 on the news. I was in bed reading a library book when the perky anchor came on. Tonight's Powerball jackpot is $53 million. The winning numbers are 7, 14, 23, 31, 45, and Powerball 18. For a moment, my mind couldn't process what I had just heard. Those were my numbers. The exact sequence I had played faithfully for over 3 decades. I fumbled for the remote, rewinding the recording to hear the announcement one more time. 7, 14, 23, 31, 45, and Powerball 18. My hands trembled as I reached for my purse, pulling out the lottery ticket with fingers that suddenly felt stiff and clumsy. There they were, printed in black and white, 714-233-145 PB18, $53 million. I sat there, staring at the ticket, waiting for the reality to settle in. After 32 years of hope and weekly $5 investments, I had finally won, and I had one big dot. My first instinct was to run downstairs and tell Michael and Ashley, to share this incredible news with my family and celebrate this life-changing moment together. Then I remembered where I was sitting, why I was here, and how I had gotten to this point. In their house, paying them $1,300 a month while serving as unpaid domestic help and childcare. Scheduled to be relocated to the basement in the spring, because my presence had become an inconvenience. Perhaps I should keep this information to myself for a little while, just until I figured out what winning $53 million truly meant for my future. I slipped the ticket back into my wallet and turned off the television. Sleep was impossible, but I lay in the dark for hours, thinking. By dawn, I had the beginnings of a plan. Saturday morning arrived with its usual chaos. Emma and Jake were visiting for the weekend, which meant Ashley would disappear to get her nails done while I supervised breakfast, entertainment, and general child management. Morning. Ashley said, already dressed in her workout clothes. I'm heading to yoga, then the salon. Can you handle the kids? Of course, I replied, same as always. Michael was in his office, catching up on work emails before his golf game. The children were in the living room, still in their pajamas, arguing over what to watch on television. It was during this perfectly ordinary Saturday morning chaos that Ashley decided to tidy up the kitchen, which included emptying my purse to look for the grocery store coupons I had clipped earlier in the week. Where did you put those cereal coupons? She called, rifling through my belongings. They should be in the side pocket, I called back, focused on mediating the remote control dispute between Emma and Jake. Found them, and oh my goodness, what is this? Something in her voice made me look up. She was standing by the kitchen counter, holding my lottery ticket, her face pale with shock. Is this? Did you buy a lottery ticket? My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. I buy one every week. Same numbers for 32 years. Ashley was staring at the ticket as if it were radioactive. Doc, do you know what the winning numbers were last night? Before I could answer, she was grabbing her phone, frantically searching online. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Michael. Her shriek brought Michael running from his office, his golf shirt half-buttoned, hair still messy from sleep. What's wrong? Is someone hurt? The lottery ticket. Ashley thrust the ticket at him with trembling hands. Look at the numbers. Look at last night's drawing. Michael took the ticket, frowning as he read the numbers. His frown deepened as Ashley showed him her phone screen with the winning combination. The silence in the kitchen stretched, broken only by Emma asking if anyone was going to make pancakes. Finally, Michael looked up at me, his expression unreadable. Mom, do you realize what this means? I realized exactly what it meant. The only question was whether they did. The next hour was pure chaos, and I watched it all unfold from my seat at the kitchen table, as if viewing someone else's life through a window. Ashley was pacing, phone pressed to her ear, talking to what sounded like every person in her contact list. $53 million. Yes, million. We won the lottery, we won. That was an interesting choice of words. Michael had taken the ticket from Ashley and was examining it like a forensic expert, comparing the numbers on his phone screen over and over. This is real, he kept muttering. This is actually real. Emma and Jake, sensing something momentous was happening, had abandoned their TV dispute and were standing in the kitchen doorway, eyes wide with confusion and excitement. Are we rich now? Emma asked. We're very rich, sweetheart, Ashley said, scooping her up for a spin around the kitchen. We'll never have to worry about money again. I found myself thinking about Henry, wondering what he would make of this scene. He would probably say something wise about not counting chickens before they hatch. Henry had always been cautious about assuming outcomes before understanding all the variables. Mom, Michael said, still clutching the ticket, we need to call a lawyer and a financial advisor. There are taxes to consider, and claiming procedures, and we should probably call that contractor and upgrade the basement plans. Ashley interrupted. I mean, if we're millionaires, we don't need to go with the cheapest options anymore. The basement. Even in the midst of what they thought was their life-changing good fortune, they were still planning to move me to the basement. Actually, Ashley continued, her voice taking on that particular tone she used when working through a problem. We should probably think bigger than the basement. With this kind of money, we could buy a bigger house, something with a proper mother-in-law wing, or her voice brightened. We could look into one of those nice senior communities for the expensive ones where they have activities and medical care and everything. There it was. The money was going to buy them a more elegant way to remove me from their lives. Michael nodded enthusiastically. That's a great idea, Mom. You'd probably be happier with people your own age, right? And we could afford one of the really nice places now. I watched my son and daughter-in-law make plans for my future, using money they assumed belonged to them, to solve a problem they had created by treating me like an inconvenience. The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. There's just one small detail we should probably address, I said quietly. Both of them turned to look at me, their expressions expectant and slightly impatient, like parents listening to a child interrupting an adult conversation. The lottery ticket, I continued calmly, is in my name. The silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't the shocked silence of unexpected good news. This was the horrified silence of people realizing they had made a terrible assumption. What do you mean? Ashley asked slowly. I held out my hand. After a moment's hesitation, Michael placed the ticket in my palm. I mean, I said, looking down at the familiar numbers that had just transformed from hope into power, that I bought this ticket with my money, from my purse, using the numbers I've played for 32 years, which makes it mine. Ashley's face went through several fascinating color changes. But you live here. We're family. That money, it changes everything for all of us. No, I said, standing up from the kitchen table with more dignity than I'd felt in 2 years. It changes everything for me. The look of dawning realization on their faces was something I knew I would treasure for years to come. The moment they understood that their unpaid housekeeper, their soon-to-be basement dweller, their convenient source of monthly rent money, had just become independently wealthy, they were about to learn that $53 million could buy a lot more than a nice house. It could buy freedom. It could buy justice. And it could buy the most satisfying payback a mother had ever served to ungrateful children. The kitchen fell so quiet, I could hear the refrigerator humming and Emma whispering to Jake in the living room. Michael and Ashley stood frozen. Mom, Michael said carefully, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Yes, technically the ticket is in your name, but we're family. We share things. We support each other. I almost laughed. Support each other. Like when they supported me by charging me $1,300 a month to live in their guest room, or when they supported me by planning to move me to the basement. You're absolutely right, I said sweetly. We do support each other. Which is why I've been supporting you with my social security check every month while doing all your housework and childcare for free. Ashley's business brain was working overtime. I could see it in her eyes. She was calculating, strategizing, looking for an angle. Honey, she said, using the voice she reserved for her most important clients. I think there's been a misunderstanding about our living arrangement. The monthly contribution you make, that's not rent. That's just your share of household expenses. We've never thought of you as a tenant. Is that so? I tucked the lottery ticket back into my wallet with deliberate care. Then, I suppose you won't mind if I stop contributing to household expenses immediately, since I'm family, not a tenant. Michael stepped forward, hands raised as if dealing with a potentially dangerous animal. Mom, let's all take a breath here. This is huge news, life-changing news. We need to think through the implications carefully. Oh, I've been thinking, I said, for about 8 hours now, since I saw those numbers last night, and I've come to some interesting conclusions. Ashley's strained smile was starting to crack around the edges. What kind of conclusions? Well, for starters, I said, I concluded that $53 million is enough money to live very comfortably for the rest of my life without depending on anyone else for housing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're not serious, Ashley whispered. You wouldn't just leave. Not after everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me. Like taking my money every month while treating me like hired help. Like planning to move me to the basement because my presence had become inconvenient. Like discussing my living situation at dinner parties, as if I were a clever business investment. I'm very serious, I said. In fact, I'm planning to call the lottery office first thing Monday morning to claim my prize. And then I'm going to start looking for a place of my own. Mikhail was starting to panic. I could see it in the way he kept running his hands through his hair. Mom, you can't make decisions like this when you're emotional. This is too big, too complicated. You need help managing this kind of money. From whom you? Yes, from us. We're your family. I looked at my son. I really looked at him and saw a stranger. When had Michael become someone who thought I was too incompetent to manage my own affairs? When had he decided that being my child gave him rights to my choices? Michael, I said quietly, when your father was dying, do you know what he made me promise? Both of them went very still. He made me promise that I wouldn't let anyone take advantage of my kindness. He said people would try, especially family, because they'd assume I was too polite or too weak to stand up for myself. The silence stretched until Ashley finally cleared her throat. I think you're overreacting to what was basically a miscommunication. Am I? I reached into my purse and pulled out a small notebook. Let me share some numbers with you. Over the past year, I've paid you $15,600 in household expenses. I've provided approximately 1,200 hours of unpaid childcare. I've done roughly 800 loads of laundry, cooked about 300 meals, and cleaned this house from top to bottom every week. Ashley's face was getting redder with each number. In return, I continued, you've given me a guest room that you're planning to relocate to the basement, and the privilege of listening to you discuss my living arrangements as entertainment for your dinner parties. That's not fair, Michael protested. We've provided you with a home. You've provided me with room and board in exchange for payment and labor that exceeds what you provided by about $20,000. That's not generosity, son. That's exploitation. The word hung in the air like smoke. And now, I continued, standing up and smoothing my sweater, I have the resources to explore other options. Sunday morning arrived with Ashley in full crisis management mode. She had, obviously, spent the night strategizing because she greeted me at the breakfast table with a 3-ring binder and her most professional smile. I've been doing some research, she announced, opening the binder to reveal printed articles. Did you know that a large percentage of lottery winners end up bankrupt within a few years? I poured myself coffee and settled in to watch the performance. Is that so? Absolutely. The statistics are terrifying. Poor financial decisions, bad investments, family members taking advantage. It's a complete disaster for most people. She flipped through pages of highlighted text. That's why you need professional guidance, family guidance. Michael appeared in the doorway, looking like he hadn't slept well. Mom, Ashley's right. This is way too big for any one person to handle alone, especially someone your age. Ashley added helpfully, No offense, Doc, but managing $53 million requires expertise in tax law, investment strategy, estate planning. It's incredibly complex. I took a sip of coffee and studied their earnest faces. They had clearly spent considerable time preparing this intervention, working out their talking points. It was almost touching how much effort they were putting into convincing me I was incompetent. "You've given this a lot of thought," I observed. "We care about you," Michael said. "We don't want to see you make mistakes that could ruin your financial security." "What kind of mistakes?" Ashley leaned forward, sensing an opening. "Well, for instance, buying a house without understanding the tax implications, or making large purchases without considering cash flow, or trusting the wrong people with your money." "The wrong people," I repeated. "Like who?" "Like financial advisors who charge huge fees, or investment managers who push risky products, or family members who might try to take advantage of your generosity," Ashley said, apparently without any sense of irony. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate precision. "Ashley, let me ask you something. When I moved in here, did you research the average cost of assisted living facilities in our area?" Her eyes flickered. What do you mean?" "I mean, did you look up what it would cost me to live somewhere else so you could price my room and board competitively?" Michael shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, we never thought of it that way because I did some research myself yesterday," I continued. "The average cost of a private room in a quality assisted living facility around here is about $4,500 a month. That includes meals, housekeeping, activities, and medical support." Ashley was very quiet now. "You've been charging me $1,300 for a guest room and the privilege of doing my own housework, cooking, and childcare. That's not family helping family. That's a business arrangement. And not even a fair one." "It's not about money," Michael said, desperately. "It's about family, about staying together." "Is it? Then why were you planning to move me to the basement?" Neither of them had an answer for that. I closed Ashley's binder and slid it back across the table. "I appreciate your concern about lottery winners facing financial trouble, but I think you're worried about the wrong person making poor choices." Ashley's professional composure was starting to crack. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that in the past year, I've been subsidizing your lifestyle to the tune of about $20,000. Meanwhile, you've been planning home renovations, taking vacations, and buying new furniture while charging your elderly mother-in-law a high rate for a room with no privacy or independence." I stood up from the table. "But that's all about to change." "Where are you going?" Ashley asked sharply. "To call my lawyer." The look of panic that crossed both their faces was something I'd remember for a long time. By Monday afternoon, news of my lottery win had spread through our town like wildfire. Jimmy from the corner store had apparently put two and two together, and by noon, there were several news vans parked outside Michael and Ashley's house. I watched from my bedroom window as reporters knocked on the front door. Ashley had taken to answering with her hair perfectly styled and her brightest smile, clearly hoping to be featured in the coverage. "Mrs. Williams is resting and not available for comment right now," she told one reporter. "But as her family, we're just so excited for this blessing in all our lives." All our lives. That phrase was becoming her favorite. My phone had been ringing constantly. Old friends, former coworkers, even my cousin from out of state. Everyone wanted to congratulate me and inevitably ask what I was planning to do with the money. What I was planning to do was meet with David Richardson, the lawyer Henry and I had used for our wills. David was expecting me at 2:00. "You can't leave the house right now," Ashley said, intercepting me as I headed for the front door. "There are reporters everywhere. They'll mob you." "I have an appointment," I replied calmly. "Can't it wait? At least until the media attention dies down." Michael appeared beside his wife, both of them blocking my path. "No, it can't wait. Mom, be reasonable. You're not equipped to handle this kind of attention. Let us help you navigate this." Navigate, another one of Ashley's corporate terms. "I've been navigating my own life for 67 years, I said. "I think I can manage a walk to my car." But when I opened the front door, I understood their concern. Reporters crowded the front yard, cameras and microphones ready. The moment they saw me, they surged forward. "Mrs. Williams, how does it feel to win? What are you planning to do with the money? Is it true you've been playing the same numbers for over 30 years? I paused on the front step. Behind me, I could feel Michael and Ashley hovering, probably hoping I'd retreat. instead. I straightened my shoulders and walked down the steps. I'm very grateful for this blessing, I told the reporters, stopping beside my car. As for what I'm planning to do, I'm going to use it to live independently and make my own choices for the first time in 2 years. What do you mean by that, Mrs. Williams? I looked back at the house where Michael and Ashley stood, framed in the doorway, and something settled into place inside me. It felt like clarity and strength. I mean that sometimes in life, you discover that the people you trust most have been taking advantage of your kindness, and sometimes the universe gives you the resources to do something about it. The reporters sensed a story, pressing closer. Can you elaborate? I've been living with my son and daughter-in-law for the past 2 years, paying them $1,300 a month while providing unpaid domestic and childcare services. They were planning to move me to their basement because my presence had become inconvenient. I could hear Ashley's sharp intake of breath from the doorway. Now that I have the means to live independently, I'll be finding my own place, somewhere I can be a guest when I visit my son, rather than a paying tenant in his home. Are you saying your own family was taking advantage of you financially? I looked directly into the nearest camera, thinking about all the other older people who might be watching. I'm saying that family should be about love and respect, not business arrangements. And I'm saying that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, no matter what your age. The questions came faster after that, but I'd said what I needed to say. I got into my car and drove away, leaving Michael and Ashley to deal with the situation. In my rearview mirror, I could see Ashley frantically trying to manage the reporters, but the truth was already out there, and I was just getting started. David Richardson's law office was a welcome refuge. At 75, David had the calm, methodical approach that came from 40 years of helping people navigate life's complications. "Dorothy," he said, rising from behind his desk with a warm smile. "Congratulations. Henry would be so proud." "Thank you." I settled into the familiar leather chair where Henry and I had sat so many times. "I saw the news coverage," David continued, his expression growing serious. "Quite a statement you made. Was it too much?" "Not at all. Sometimes the truth needs to be spoken plainly." He opened a file folder. "Now, let's talk about protecting your interests. Have you claimed the prize yet?" "I'm planning to drive to the state capitol tomorrow." "Good. I'd recommend taking the annuity rather than the lump sum for tax purposes. We'll need to set up some trusts, maybe a charitable foundation if you're interested." We spent the next hour discussing financial strategies. David explained everything in terms I could understand, never once suggesting the decisions were too complex for me. It was while we were discussing living arrangements that David dropped his own revelation. "Dorothy, there's something I need to tell you. Something Henry made me promise to keep confidential, unless specific circumstances arose." My stomach tightened. "What kind of circumstances?" "If your family ever tried to take advantage of you financially." David opened another file, this one thick with documents. "Henry was more aware of Michael and Ashley's situation than you realized." "What do you mean?" "He knew they were living beyond their means. He also suspected they were already planning to have you move in with them after his death, not out of love, but out of financial necessity." The room seemed to tilt sideways. Henry knew he hired a private investigator to look into their finances about 6 months before he passed. He was worried about what would happen to you. David pulled out a folder. "Michael and Ashley are in significant debt. Dorothy, credit cards, car loans, their mortgage is underwater. They've been living on borrowed money for years." I stared at the papers, seeing columns of numbers that painted a picture of financial recklessness. "Henry wanted you to have this information if you ever needed it to protect yourself," David continued. "He also wanted you to know about the insurance policy." "What insurance policy?" David smiled sadly. "The one he took out specifically to ensure you'd have resources if Michael and Ashley became a problem. $500,000, paid directly to a trust account in your name. It's been sitting there earning interest for 2 years, waiting for you to need it." $500,000. Henry had been protecting me from beyond the grave. "He knew," I whispered. "He knew this would happen. He loved you enough to prepare for it." David closed the file gently. "The question now is what you want to do with this information." I thought about Michael blocking my path that morning, insisting he only wanted to help. I thought about Ashley with her binders full of statistics, positioning herself as my savior while she'd been taking advantage of me for 2 years. I thought about Henry, who'd spent his final months not just fighting his illness, but fighting to protect me from our own son. David, I said finally, I want to have a family meeting tonight. I want Michael and Ashley to understand exactly what their financial situation looks like and exactly how much I know about it. Are you sure? Once you reveal this, there's no going back. I stood up, feeling stronger and more determined than I had in years. David, I've spent 2 years being treated like a convenient source of income by people who were supposed to love me. My husband saw this coming and tried to protect me. I think it's time Michael and Ashley learned what happens when you underestimate a Williams woman. The look of admiration in David's eyes told me everything I needed to know. Henry would indeed be proud. The family meeting was scheduled for 7 that evening. I'd spent the afternoon preparing with David's help, organizing documents and planning what I needed to say. Michael and Ashley thought they were coming to discuss my comments to the reporters and find a way to manage the attention. They had no idea they were walking into a reckoning. Ashley arrived first, armed with printed articles about lottery winners and a laptop full of spreadsheets. Michael brought a bottle of wine and his most conciliatory expression. "Mom, about what you said to those reporters," Michael began as they settled in. "We understand you were overwhelmed." "I wasn't overwhelmed," I interrupted calmly. I was finally telling the truth. Ashley opened her laptop. "We've prepared a comprehensive financial plan that addresses all your concerns while ensuring your long-term security." "Before we discuss my financial security," I said, reaching for the folder David had given me, "I think we should discuss yours." I placed the first document on the coffee table. Michael glanced down at it, and the color drained from his face. "What is this?" Ashley asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "It's a complete financial profile of your household, compiled by a private investigator your father hired before he died." I watched both of them go very still. He was worried about what would happen to me. "So, he did some research into your circumstances." Michael stared at the papers. "Dad hired an investigator to spy on us, to protect me," I said, which, as it turns out, was necessary. I pulled out another document. "You owe $47,000 in credit card debt across 6 different cards. Your mortgage is underwater by $32,000. You have 2 car loans totaling $18,000. And Ashley, your business has been operating at a loss for 8 months." Ashley's composure cracked completely. "How dare you invade our privacy? The same way you invaded mine when you decided I was too incompetent to manage a lottery ticket I bought with my own money." I kept my voice level. "For 2 years, you've been using my Social Security payments to service your debt while positioning me as a grateful dependent." Michael found his voice. "Mom, everyone has financial challenges. Not everyone charges their widowed mother $1,300 a month to live as unpaid domestic help while planning to move her to the basement." I placed another document on the table. "This is a breakdown of what my living situation has actually cost me versus what it would cost to live independently. You've been overcharging me by about $600 a month while getting about $1,500 worth of unpaid labor from me." The silence that followed was profound. "That's over $25,000 a year you've been taking from me," I continued. $50,000 over 2 years from your own mother, while you were planning to isolate me further by moving me to your basement." Ashley was crying now, but I noticed they were the kind of tears people cry when they're caught, not when they're sorry. "We never meant for it to be like that," Michael said desperately. We needed help, and you were family, and you thought I was too old and too grateful to figure out what you were doing." I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in months. "But your father knew. He saw through both of you, and he made sure I'd have the resources to protect myself." When I finally realized what was happening, I placed the final document on the table. "This is notification of a trust fund Henry established for me 2 years ago. $500,000, earning interest, waiting for me to need it. He also left instructions with David Richardson to monitor your financial situation and intervene if necessary." Michael shook his head as if he could make the truth disappear. "I don't understand. Dad never said anything because he hoped he was wrong about you. He hoped that when the time came, you'd treat me with the love and respect he'd taught you to show family." I picked up my purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" Ashley called after me. "To start my new life. I've put a deposit on a beautiful apartment at Meadowbrook Senior Community. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, my own parking space, and a monthly fee that's less than what I was paying to be your tenant. I paused at the front door, looking back at the 2 people who'd taken advantage of my grief and loneliness for their own financial gain. Oh, and one more thing. Since you'll no longer have my income to help with your expenses, you might want to start planning how you'll manage that $47,000 in credit card debt. I hear financial stress can be very challenging for families. As I walked out to my car, I could hear Ashley crying and Michael trying to calm her down. But their crisis was no longer my problem. I had $53 million, a late husband who'd loved me enough to protect me from beyond the grave, and the rest of my life to live on my own terms. Henry always said that justice delayed wasn't justice denied, it was justice with better timing. Turned out, he was right about that. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.